It's time to jump into the Despair Dungeon. Welcome to Monokuma's Test. What's going on, everyone? It's the Niskel. Welcome back to Danganronpa V3. Now that you've beaten Ultimate Talent Development Plan, it's time to see how your students fare. Oh, the footsteps. They're coming. They're coming in droves. The Mono Cub's nefarious plot has awakened an army of Monokumas. So many bears. It appears that they are marching out of the basement of Hope's Peak. To save the world, the Academy's alumni mobilize to investigate. Here is your RPG. Bring your students in here and try to get through every single floor. All 50 of them, and possibly a couple more, maybe. Put together your party in party formation up to 4, and then go to the other ground. Start going through the dungeon. As you defeat enemies, you'll get a bunch of materials, and you can craft items, armor, shoes, accessories, all that cool stuff. A very important note for this RPG, your party members do not level up in this game. This is why your 3 years at Hope's Peak are important. Your final results are what you're taking into this dungeon. So raise those stats and get the skills you want. After you get some cash while in the dungeon, go ahead and throw it into these machines and get some new cards for new students. We're gonna be here a while if we want 100%. Develop, fight, draw cards, develop. It's a cycle. It took 2 separate minigames to create one whole experience. Get all the cards, get them trained up, get into this dungeon. There is special training here that can help you if you forget what's what, but that's why I'm here. Since this minigame is a bit of a complex beast and everyone's playthrough will be different from my own, I figured the best way to explain this game would be to give tips and tricks based on my experience, passing along knowledge so you can forge your own path and beat Monokuma. Let's start with the basics. When I first started this game, I was a little confused as to what the different types of students meant, as well as the stats they start with. Here is a quick and dirty explanation. Influence are your hit points and maximum health. Focus are your skill points or your magic points, whatever you want to see them as. Strength is your normal attack power and your physical skill power. And defense is how well you take damage from normal attacks or physical attacks. Intellect are your skill attack power, or your magic, if you want to think of them simplistically. Fortitude is basically defense, but for magic attacks. Your fortitude is also your resistance to status ailments, so keep that in mind. Agility determines the turn order and your chances to dodge attacks. You also have better chances to hit with a good speed stat. Luck determines chances of running away and doing critical hits. Note, whoever has the highest luck stat in the party determines the runaway chance. Awaken only applies to battle. Every time you attack or use a skill, your Awaken gauge will fill up. Once it is half full, you can use it to give you a damage boost, increase your hit rate, or make spells more effective and powerful. The more Awaken you use, the better your results. Now, let's talk about the different types of students you can raise and what skills make for a good loadout. The sports or red students are your tanks. They're your main attackers and are good at dealing damage. If you need something dead, these will be the characters you rely on. Sports students are also good at taking hits, surviving heavy attacks, and if need be, can be a human shield for your fellow ultimates. These cards you'll want plenty of attack and defense. Speed can also be your friend, making them hard to hit while they hit hard in response. Some standout skills are Sword Stab, especially in the later floors. Upgrading this fully gives you massive damage, and in conjunction with attack power-up or crit power-up, makes for a devastating one-punch man. Assassinate on a fast and lucky tank is nearly paramount for grinding rare materials in the later floors. Or if there's an enemy that annoys you, just one-shot it if you've made a fast gambler. A fully upgraded Falcon Kick after using Zeal ruins harder enemies, dealing 4 consecutive hits with increased strength. Just know that as soon as enemies start to have a bigger speed stat, you'll have to train a new tank with better speed because Falcon Kick can miss multiple times if you're too slow. Sacrifice is broken on a fast tank, especially fully upgraded. You can cheese bosses and even full enemy groups by jumping in front of attacks, and then the enemies whiff it. No damage taken just because you're fast and jump on grenades. Tanks can also benefit from the spell Absorb Focus, basically resetting your skill points to constantly be dealing heavy blows while sapping enemy magic. Your intelligence or blue students are your magic users. Defense and intellect are paramount, keeping your mage alive long enough to deal elemental damage to one or multiple targets. Having good fortitude can also help stave off status ailments if your mage ends up using damaging and healing magic. Your different attack spells can damage one or multiple foes depending on which type you get, but the real winners are the status ailments. Poison is the silent killer, dealing damage every turn while an enemy is infected and dealing more damage the more the skill is upgraded. Confuse can ruin an enemy party, being able to waste their turn while they attack their allies. Sleep makes enemies skip turns, but they wake up when they're hit. Curse and Blind can be a good combo, since Curse stops enemies from using abilities, and Blind would make you harder to hit. Having a status spell fully upgraded also increases its chances of working. Bosses sometimes have weaknesses to status ailments, but can't be hit with them unless the spell is more powerful, and even then they still resist it, so it comes down to luck at that point. Each attack spell has a power-up skill you can upgrade, making even a single spell mage a monster on the battlefield. I would suggest focusing on a single spell mage for your boss team, and a multi-target mage when exploring and grinding. Your variety or green students are your supports. They can be healers, buffers, debuffers, whatever you want them to be. Variety students already have decent defense and fortitude, so I would focus on extra health for them. At the start, you won't have to worry much about bringing characters back to life, so focus more on helping your ultimate stay alive with Recover Influence and the different elemental barriers to lower damage. In the later floors, having a fully upgraded Recover Influence and Fighting Spirit will save your team, because those skills fully heal and resurrect everyone respectively. Having your support use debuff is hilarious because you'll have a boss power up, you take the wind out of their sails, then you counterattack. Having endurance up and ultra defense keeps your support from getting status ailments. And in the later floors, this can save your party from being wiped because status ailments take a long time to wear off. And sometimes you get caught in a loop of infinite bullshit. Take care of your support, and they'll take care of you. Another skill that helps save time in the later half? Fog. The more it's upgraded, the longer you can go without encounters. Seriously, this skill saves hours if you're just trying to get back to the boss you died to. Now that you know what your students are capable of, what should you bring into the fight? During my experience, one of each with a double of whatever your current situation calls for. Strolling through the dungeon and collecting chests? Bring another tank or mage to help kill. Want to fight an optional boss that hits hard? Bring an extra support and heal your healer. You'll have to mix and match for different parts of the dungeon, so choose the best for your current situation, or just use fog and run to the next boss. That's what I did. Since you have to scale so many floors, breaking the playthrough into chunks prevents burnout. Every 5 floors, you can find an elevator taking you back to home base. These checkpoints help so much, especially if you're impatient like I was at certain points and just wanted to get to the next boss. Heading back to base heals your party and gives you a chance to craft items and change up your armor or students. This is also a good stopping point, so you can save, draw character cards, or go back to the dev plan and make a new ultimate if you want. While crafting, honestly, I didn't dive into it too much because the items you find in chests are already pretty good at adding stats. That being said, during the early floors, grinding and crafting can be done to make them easier while you try to get new and higher stat cards. I spent all my money on getting rare cards instead of crafting because getting duplicate cards gets you free materials. After a while, you barely need to grind until the later floors because every rarity of card gets you something to help craft. I'm not saying you shouldn't craft, I'm saying it isn't as important as getting better students and advancing through the dungeon. Speaking of character cards, the game is built around progress through the dungeon. The card machine chances for different rarities changes the further along you are in the dungeon. It starts out with normal rank cards being dominant with a low chance of pulling S rank cards, because they don't want you loading saves to get an OP card and blitz through the game. Every 5 floors you find an elevator which serves as a checkpoint. Every 10 floors you have to fight a boss. Every floor ending in 1 gives you new chances for cards. Basically, every time you beat a boss and advance to the next floor, you get better odds. So before you blow your winnings from a boss fight, go up one floor, then duck out and get better cards. Here are the odds for the different floors. You'll be starting small and get gradually stronger as the enemies do, so there really aren't too many instances where you'll feel overpowered. Now, you may have noticed that those odds for cards start to get really good past floor 50. Surprise! This dungeon is longer than expected and gets harder from there! The first half of the game is using normal and the occasional super cards to fight your way to floor 50. After floor 50, the kid gloves are off, and you'll be reliant on the new Ultra cards. By the end, you'll have an army of Ultras to help you squeak by for the last 50 floors. To make this trek easier, let's talk some hints and tricks. When you open up chests and beat bosses, they do not respawn, even if you die after obtaining or beating them. You'll just be sent back to base losing a little cash, and you'll have to make up your progress, but you don't have to redo the bosses. Explore each floor to the fullest to get all the treasure. Even if you get encounters, you can double dip by getting some grinding in while finding free money or armor. If you're having some trouble and need better equipment, some of the best armor, weapons, etc. rely on rare materials found on rare monsters. Here are the floors they appear on, but know that finding them is half the battle. These different Monokuma mammals have low HP but a very high speed stat, making them hard to hit, but easy to kill. After floor 50, they actually start to put up a fight, so bringing a fast assassin can really help. We'll be talking boss strategies here in a bit, but know that beating a boss gives you a lot of gold and powerful armor or weapons, and sometimes materials. Some floors have hidden rooms, and these are the biggest cheat code I can offer you. Every hidden room has a super ticket for a free super card. And after floor 50, they start having Ultra tickets for free Ultra cards. If you need a crutch, find these freebies on these floors. I also have a visual aid so you know where to look. Now for the hardest part, the bosses. These will be your common roadblock as you jump blindly into the fight and die over and over again. Unless you know what they're weak to. Let's walk through each boss and beat them at their own game. Monokuma Sect. This is your first test to see how well your team synergizes. Its main attack is to ice freeze all, so having the skill Ice Barrier will almost make this boss a joke. It is also weak to poison, so infect it, shield yourself from the ice, and watch that non-existent health bar melt. It does resist status ailments, however, but if you've upgraded it even once, you'll have a good shot of infecting it. You'll get a trophy after beating this boss, so that's an added plus. Monokuma Tank. This boss can be tough without a super in your ranks. Its Wind Jet All skill can rip through your team without the Wind Barrier skill. It's also resistant to physical attacks, so mages and support all the way. Same as Monokuma Sect, it's weak to poison, but highly resists it. Upgrade the poison and chip away at its HP while throwing spells at it. The Blue Exisal. The Exisals are optional super bosses with high HP, hard-hitting attacks, but amazing rewards. The Blue Exisal boosts its attack with Zeal, then uses Sword Stab for a one-hit kill. It also has a high attack stat to begin with, so its normal attacks hit like a truck too. Using high speed and heavy attacks are your friends. Mages also do well with Exisouls, especially with a highly upgraded single-hit spell and the additional element upgrade skill. I'd say save these fights for later. You'll definitely get mulched with the cards you get by this point. After beating it, you get some amazing accessories that raises specific stats that can help you win harder fights. Think of them as a future investment. Come back with some Ultras or a party of Supers and reap the rewards. The Monokuma boss. This boss is rough. Its strategy is to buff itself with Zeal, a skill that can't be debuffed, by the way. Then use Summer Rain Fist to wipe your whole party with massive damage. Don't bother with status ailments, because you can cheese this boss with speed. The faster your tanks, the deadlier they are for this boss. I'd suggest to bring a team of fast heavy hitters and maybe some crit luck, because this thing needs to die fast before it wipes your team. This one felt really good to beat, I'll be honest. Monduba. This boss doesn't play fair. Its main strategy is to use All Down, which lowers your stats so you aren't doing as much damage and will take more damage, cast Blind so your party has lower chances of hitting him, then casting Electric Paralyze All to wipe your blinded weakened team. Having a support with high fortitude to lower its chances of being inflicted with conditions is key. Give them Ultra Defense and Cure Condition, while someone else uses Electric Barrier to make them a thorn in this boss's side. Same as all the other bosses so far, besides the Exisouls, it's weak to poison, but resists status ailments. One small tip, blindness doesn't mean you can't hit the enemy. It's just harder to do with physical attacks. Use magic attacks while blind and you'll hit more often, I found. The Yellow Exisoul. It's the same as the first. Huge HP with a boosting move and a single hit powerful attack. Don't try to use status, just focus on dealing damage. If you need to draw aggro with a tank, that could be the difference between a win and a loss. Play your cards right, and you'll get the second accessory set as your reward. Very worth your time and headaches. The Green Exisol! Oh hey! This one has Zeal to boost attack and Electric for a huge elemental attack or Sword Stab for a huge physical attack. Same strategy, and you'll definitely want to kill this one for the amazing accessories and payout. It'll help you buy more cards! On floor 49, you have a boss rush with the bosses we just talked about besides the Exisols. They haven't changed at all, so whatever you used to beat them the first time will work here. Note, you don't have to beat them all in a row. Beat one, leave and come back with another team fully healed because they stay dead. So don't make it harder for yourself. Beat all four, get your rewards, and move on to the final boss. Monokuma is an endurance round. Be sure to have most, if not all, super cards by this point to have decent stats. Monokuma can use All Up, which raises all its stats, then normally uses Falcon Kick to take out one target, or Ice Freeze All to try and sweep. Having the skill debuff makes it an even match, then use Ice Barrier to protect yourself. Having fast characters will also help dodge against Falcon Kick, and Poison helps chip down its health. Just like all the other bosses, it resists poison, so don't rely on it, and hit it hard, hit it fast, and take necessary precautions. After beating this boss, enjoy the credits, and congrats on winning. Enjoy it because we're about to jump into hard mode. Monokuma Sect V3. This boss might seem familiar. It's lost its weakness to poison, and so did every other boss from here on out, by the way, and decided to learn poison instead. It still has Ice Freeze All and Falcon Kick to deal with remaining targets if the ice didn't kill them. Not too bad of a boss if you bring Ice Barrier and cure status ailments, just watch for its kicks. They hit hard. Monokuma Tank V3. Oh, fuck this boss. It still resists physical attacks and can still hit everyone with wind damage. Its new skill is Sleep All. Sleep can cripple a team if no one avoids it. You can't attack until something hits you. And when the boss hits this hard, you may just lose your team. Try to have mages and support with high fortitude to avoid the nap attack. Bring the wind barrier and cure status spell to help kill this thing as fast as possible with every elemental attack. The Pink Exisal. This boss is a joke. Don't let the HP fool you. This boss tears like tissue paper. The only move that can deal damage is poison. Don't use physical attacks, don't use elemental attacks, just use a level 10 poison and defend. This should only take a couple turns and you get some amazing rewards for this throwaway fight. Monokuma Boss V3 is the exact same boss, but with a lot more hit points. Same strategy too. He hits hard, but if you're too fast, he can't hit you. An endurance round that can end in a snap if it gets an attack off, or you eventually kill it. If you have any armor to make a support fast for healing and resurrect, or bring 2 tanks, one to sacrifice and take all the hits, and one to deal damage and keep bringing them back, then you should beat this pretty easily. Monokuma V3 is almost exactly like the original, but now it has a single-hit wind attack. It still likes to use blind and lower your stats, then shock everyone for the sweep. Honestly, I wouldn't worry too much about the wind damage unless it targets your healer. Its main strategy is still deadly, so focus on surviving that and take this thing down. The Red Exisal. This one has the exact same loadout as the Green Exisal, but a lot more hit points, good lord. You'll be fighting this one for a while, so prep for survival. You really want to kill this one because the materials, accessories, and money are so worth it. Exisal V3. Oh look, the same skills as the Red Exisal, but it has less health? What's going on here? Well, this one has a huge agility stat, so unless you have some fast characters, you'll be missing a lot. You can totally stalemate this fight if you use the sacrifice revive method. One of you will die eventually. It has one disadvantage, however. One of them versus 4 of you. By this point, this boss should be a breeze, so enjoy your amazing armor as a reward. On floor 99, you'll have another boss rush. Same deal as before, but with the new V3 variants. Take in multiple teams, and take these guys out again. By this point, you should have a party of ultras with great stats and equipment. This shouldn't be too bad, but I understand if you have to redo a couple fights because sometimes they just hit the ground running and kill you when you least expect it. Floor 100 is Monokuma V3. Remember how this boss was an endurance round? Well, it still is, but now it can debuff you. Joke's on them, you can still use debuff. Keep the ice barrier, have a fast tank to deal damage and avoid dying, or have them be the sacrifice to keep everyone else alive, and it should go down eventually. This one will take some time, especially since it can't be hit by status effects easily or at all. Just focus on attacking and staying alive. After this boss, congrats on beating all 100 floors! Yeah! Good job! You beat the game! Or so you thought. There is one final boss, and the hardest of all. Monokuma V3. Going back to floor 100 will let you battle the true final boss. This is a tough one, but it is highly allergic to one thing. Cheese! 66,666 HP, uses Windjet all, confused to make your team lose their turn and attack your own party, uses Despair, which stops your ability to heal, and Summer Rain Fist to sweep the team. It also has a huge luck stat, which means every single physical attack is a crit. This one is rough, but the cheese, oh, it tastes so good. Have a support with high fortitude that knows Ultra Defense, Cure Condition, Recover Influence, and Fighting Spirit all fully upgraded. That gives you a character that makes it hard to be inflicted with status, that can also heal everyone, cure everyone, and resurrect everyone. Have a mage with a boosted single hit element as well as a fully upgraded poison. Have a fast tank with Zeal and Falcon Kick to hit it up to 4 times with huge damage, and another with Sacrifice to take all the damage that Monokuma V3 can dish. This creates a scenario where if your party gets infected, your support removes it. If V3 attacks, your tank gets hit with everything, then is brought back with full health next round. You have poison dealing massive damage while your mage uses elemental damage and multiple physical attacks coming from your tank on safe rounds. An endless loop of attacks that kills Monokuma V3 quickly and effectively. Use Awaken as much as you can. That boost in damage, effectiveness in magic, and possible crits are amazing against this boss. There is also a skill that just gives you a free half bar of Awaken at the beginning of a battle. I would suggest giving this to your mage. Automatic crit right at the beginning. Or automatic poison just to make sure it works. After beating the true final boss, there is your trophy and tons of money as your reward to get the remaining cards if you haven't already. Congratulations, this game is now finally complete. As we're winding down, here are some final notes to help you complete this minigame. As you progress through the dungeon, familiar enemies will have stronger variants on later floors. Almost all of them have the same weaknesses and resistances, so if you see a familiar face, kill it like the good old days. You can create 3 cards for the same character. I think they wanted you to mix and match abilities with the same character in different rarities if you wanted, but this also means you can make multiples of the same rarity up to 3. Want to create a team with 2 Kaitos, a Maki, and a Shuichi for ultimate friendship? Go right ahead. Those numbers on your stat screen can actually go above 999, but won't actually show it. The cap is only visual. You will never have a money problem, unless you're trying to craft every item. There are passive skills that up gold drops and material drops, so if you have an ultimate that's just collecting dust, bring them along for some grinding. As you progress through the dungeon, better armor and weapons start to show up at home base with recipes on how to make them. A bunch of the later weapons and armor require use of the earlier versions of those weapons and armor pieces, so crafting whatever you can will eventually help you make better items later. I know I said I wasn't too reliant on crafting, but doing it in the early stages can save you time later during the harder half. The special weapons based on murder case items from the Danganronpa series all have pluses and minuses. For example, the hydraulic press. This is a weapon that has a ×11 multiplier for every stat, but a ×0 for agility and luck. So you have god tier stats, but you can't fucking hit anything. The best I can say is, if it sounds heavy, it'll most likely kill your speed, which is almost paramount in this minigame. If it sounds light and deadly, it probably is. After collecting one of each rarity of each card for every student, you get a trophy. Gotta admit, this one felt good to finally have the entire collection. To increase your odds of finishing the card collection, always go 10 at a time. You increase your chances for new cards while also getting you tons of materials to craft later. After all of that, congrats on completing your card collection and finishing Monokuma's test. Hopefully this guide helps you on your own quest to beat the dungeon. Have fun mixing and matching ultimates and finding strategies that work for you. Good luck. Next time on Danganronpa V3, we're going on some dates. See you guys next time.